maybe it would be great, Maja, to begin with the beginning. If you can tell us a little bit about the idea of the core group and also the beginnings of this exhibition, Solaris Chronicles, with your idea to present the models of Frank Gehry.
Yes, in Arles, we are building an institution which we call Institution for the 21st Century. The idea started 7 to 8 years ago. We have been talking in several think tanks with the core group. I want not to speak about the architecture actually, but more about the program. What do you think? Yeah? Yeah. So the core group of the Luma Foundation, specifically to develop this project for Arles, has very often really been mentioning Cedric Price and the Fun Palace during all the talks we had. Shall I formally introduce this, the names, or do we all have this? No, okay. So we are working in the alphabetical order with Liam Gillick, who is also the director of of the Center for Curatorial Study of Bard College, with Liam Gillick, who has an opening today in Grenoble and who has been collaborating into this pavilion here. He actually did this sign that you see here, which is really has been up only for the last week, I think. And we are also working with Philippe Parreno, who has been curating the show of Solaris Chronicle together with Hans-Ulrich. And then Beatrix Ruf, part of the core group, a very, very important pivotal element about all the discussions we have. So I'm going to hand over, of course, Solaris Chronicles also came from a desire. We are working with the architect Frank Gehry. We are developing not only a project of a new building, which is the building which is supposed to be there like a signal, also because in Arles you need a bigger capacity of people and a wider audience than what can be found right now in a provincial town. But beside of this, we are developing a whole campus of old existing buildings. So our reflection is really on several levels, and I'm going to let the others talk quite soon. Why I lost my... So we actually discussed about different things happening at the same time on the same place. It's like the archipelago, and this is where the idea of movement comes from. Anyway, Solaris Chronicles is a group effort, a group show. It is speaking about Frank, who gave, for the first time, who gave his seminal models. They are really huge models of most of his important projects, and they have been put into motion, put into relation, put into a choreography which has been imagined by Philippe and by Tino Segal. We chose the models with him. There is a whole thing to say about this exhibition, but Hans-Ulrich, I'm handing over for the organization of the core group and what we are really trying to do in Arles in terms of the archipelago and in terms of the Institution for the 21st Century, which is so often referring to Cedric Price and the Fun Palace.
Maja, thank you so much. And indeed, the Fun Palace was from the very beginning in the kind of focus of the core group conversation. I thought indeed Beatrix could maybe tell us a little bit more before we go into depth then about this specific project, Solaris Chronicles, the kind of overall scheme out of which it grew, and also, I mean, there was the Moon Beach project. There were many, many projects before. So it could be great, Beatrix, to hear more about that sort of overall scheme.
Yeah, I think if we talk a little bit more about the previous project, we find that it's all accumulating and moving continuously towards that. I remember very vividly when we started to talk about the project in Arles, that one question always was, now, besides the incredible attempt to really do things collaboratively and to find other ways of co-working also, I think one question was always towards the spaces and the definition of spaces and how spaces can not only have one identity but be fit for one thing but also open and dialoguing with many other things. And I think when you look at the model of the Fun Palace over sitting over there in the pavilion, you can see that there's many elements implanted in there which have to do with defining space, but also opening it up continuously to new questions. Another thing which also comes here is the question of how are being archives activated, how are spaces activated for new meaning. I think that was one of the questions continuously going on, and in the course of asking those questions, besides the actual architecture being developed, really, many projects grew out of that.
And obviously there have been previous exhibitions, but with Solaris Chronicles, the idea of the exhibition as a program, which was already there in the Moon Beach project, sort of was pushed further. And maybe, Philippe, you could tell us a little bit more about what happened with the models, because I mean there were so many layers in the conversation. The idea was initially, I think, with you and Liam, when we discussed to actually, after visiting Gary's studios, to kind of put the models in movement, but there was also this idea of a sun. Maybe it's great to hear a little bit more about the genesis of this show.
The journey started some time ago when Maja, I think last year, when Maja wanted to present in the city of Arles the architecture of Frank Gehry to the citizens, and I thought it was a good idea. And so we tried to think about a way to display or to present the architecture of Frank Gehry not in a classical way, but to try to invent something. As I'm always concerned by exhibitions and exhibition models, I thought it would be a good idea to invent a new model. So with Liam, we started first a conversation, and came the idea to have to introduce some dynamic. So the first display was to have on a ramp a light moving around the exhibition space and projecting shadows. And then we started to talk to Tino Segal about adding another layer, and Tino decided to go and to put all the models on wheels and to make them dance. And then he asked also to have the marquees, which are a series of objects I've been doing since the last 10 years, to hang them above the models. So there will be basically view layers. The marquees will perform their own lighting displays, and the models will dance, and then the light will swing and turn around. And so it's been a conversation mainly with friends and trying to develop a new grammar. And Asad Raza came also into the game, so to speak, and we developed cooked all together this new type of, I don't know what you call it, of exhibitions, yeah.
And Asad, maybe you can tell us more about this choreography which unfolded, because obviously it's a choreography which is activated every day. It's not a performance, it's an exhibition. There are very many different moments, like here in the Swiss Pavilion, we have many different moments with Philippe's blinds and, the trolleys coming out, and then all of a sudden the choreography, creating a projection. In Arles, in a similar way, there are these moments when the models don't move, there are the moments when the models move, there are the moments when the sun, all of a sudden, the projections of shadow, it becomes a shadow place. Can you tell us a bit more about the process of the choreography and how it ends up actually then being almost like an instrument which can be played every day?
Yeah, I mean, I think what was fun for me at least was to have these different orders of things to play with. So there was like Tino's choreography of the models, and there was Philippe's marquees, which also were playing a kind of music, different kinds of music, and there was also the models themselves still, and then there was the sunlight of Philippe and Liam, and so as we started to work on it, we also realized that we have these people who are going to push the models and make this kind of make them dance, but they could also operate all the other elements. And so instead of it being like a kind of pre-programmed sequence that just keeps looping, even if it's a very long loop and you don't realize it's a loop, there's still something different about a loop. What we did, which is less like that, is we created like different possibilities, and then those people can kind of dial them up when they want to. And so that, in that sense, I think it became more, I guess you could say it became more dynamic and responsive to the visitor, what happened there. And I think we tried to do that here also, that like there's no sequence that forces the people here to bring a cart or do different moments in the exhibition here. It can happen somehow in some kind of organic relation to the visitors. And that's somehow important to me, because I think like in some way when you have this moving exhibition, there's no static object that represents like the center. The center is this kind of moving, what I think of as like kind of a moving spirit that goes and inhabits different aspects of the exhibition. So in Arles, it's like inhabiting sometimes the marquees, sometimes the models and the people pushing the model, and sometimes there's just this sunlight. And here it would be again like these trolleys and the chairs and the archive and all of those things. So for me, that's the link between the two, but also what's special is to try to make something that can actually change according to what's happening rather than be according to a kind of master program.
And maybe a last question for the panel is about, because we can say these exhibitions in a very organic way are experiments which lead to the next experiment. And Solaris Chronicles very much grew out of the experiment in the arena in Arles, where a time-based exhibition happened with the moon and the beach, and there was a kind of intervention of many artists in these central display features. I was wondering if maybe one or two of you could tell us a little bit about that experiment to just complete the picture.
To talk about the moon, to the moon at the beach. That was the first show that we did. That was two years ago. That was a show I curated with Liam Gillick, and it took place in the arena in Arles, the antique arena of Arles, and where you have a lot of events happening. And there with Liam Gillick, we invited 10, 15 artists, I don't remember, to do something during 3 days. So during 3 days, there was people were witnessing art being made and being unmade. And it was quite a magical moment. So I think since then, and Solaris to here, that's I think what we try to do now, to show a sort of an experimental program for an experimental institution up to come. So while we wait for the architect to build the building, we are actually working and developing ideas, and also working together is also, I think for me also, I learn a lot from Asad, I learn a lot from Tino, and also what I was defined before as a grammar, I think it's also friendship. So we learn from each other, and we want now to push it further. And I think when the building will be built, I think we'll be ready. Yeah. No?
Maybe any final comments, Beatrix or Maja?
No, I think that's a very crucial point, what you mentioned there. I think when one went to the arena, for example, it always was this cohabitation of activities happening, but also it was always about how people act together and how they work together. And I think that is true also for the Solaris Chronicle now, that you not only experience objects, but you experience people working together.
Thank you very, very much.
No, sorry, I didn't hear you. And above all, even when the buildings are finished, we want to stay in movement.
There could not be a better conclusion. Thank you so much, Maja. Thank you so much, Philippe. Thank you so much, Beatrix. Thank you so much, Asad. Thanks a lot.